checking in or holding yourself accountable, calling yourself out, right? These are all things that we're supposed to do with our peer support people, our sponsors, our therapists, whoever you have in your corner supporting you. There needs to be honest, transparent communication around where you are in recovery. Now, sometimes this includes your wife, but again, only if she can be a safe place. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to hide things from her. That is not what I'm saying. You guys need to have an agreement on what your sobriety is and the things that you need to tell her if you slip or relapse on any of those things. So again, that's not really what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is policing your recovery so that you stay in a good, grounded, healthy place so that we can mitigate the odds of relapse or slips happening. So what are you communicating and when do we communicate? So this has been a hot topic in a lot of my groups around, do I need to tell the guys this or not? To me, there's a couple different layers to it, right? So I think the most common that we see, especially in like 12-step groups, right, is policing lust, objectification, obviously admitting to any sort of slips or acting out behaviors. But to me, that's great. And you need to be honest about that. I mean, you need to be honest, really, if you're violating your definition of sobriety, that is something that you do need to disclose to people. We know that hiding it and keeping it a secret only makes it worse, right? But again, from a recovery standpoint, now remember, I'm a big recovery guy, right? Sobriety is finding a way to stop all this stuff. Recovery is how you keep it from coming back and how you actually get to a place where you don't want to do this stuff anymore, right? So that's really my emphasis, recovery. So when I'm encouraging guys to utilize their mentors, their support network, their support group, the things that you're checking in, to me, are more of the why behind your compulsive behaviors, right? So because this is a process addiction, you need to become familiar with your processes that you've become compulsive or addicted to, right? And so there are things that activate those processes, right? And that, some people call those triggers, right? So, but again, a lot of people think triggers as, oh, I saw this attractive woman and I got triggered. I had this thought about this one website and I got triggered to go visit that website, right? But again, I think that's still too downstream, right? To me, the reason that the brain is surfing or fishing for some sort of acting out stimulation is because there's something that happened way up here, right? Way earlier on in the process. And I think that's really where we got to get in the habit of utilizing our peer support community and our helpers in our life is reporting those details to them. Because to me, you guys have seen this, like by the time we're down in that dangerous of territory, the odds of you acting out are pretty darn high. I mean, always talk about like, reaching out to your peer support network or calling your sponsor if you have a sponsor. But again, by the time we're that dangerously close, a lot of the times we just act out, right? By the time you're that egoic and you're that out of yourself, you're probably just going to make a bad decision. So to me, we want to really get into the habit of not really admitting the lusting, the objectifications, the addictive thoughts, the edging behaviors. Those need to be called out. But to me, you should get into the habit of calling yourself out earlier, right? So when we think about compulsive behaviors, there's some sort of perceived value to the acting out behavior, right? There's something that you're getting, your brain thinks it's getting from acting out, right? And what we have to figure out is what happened to you where your brain decided that it wanted to go do that. Right? So if you're truly an addict, right, and you're all about escaping, the trigger is probably going to be something unpleasant, right? It could be stress, it could be sadness, it could be somebody making you an argument, either with your wife or maybe a confrontation at work, right? And you're feeling feelings that you want to escape, right? So now your brain is telling you, hey, I wonder how we could unplug, I wonder how we could escape, I wonder how we could kind of take a break from life, right? So that would be, more of your traditional sex or porn addict where they're using sexual pornography to escape, right? But again, you want to start noticing what are the feelings that I don't like to feel, right? So you start to police those. That way you're really far away from the acting out behaviors because oh man, this is typically an area that would lead me to acting out. I should check this in with my group. I should tell the guys in my group what's going on with me here, right? So again, the emphasis is on the, unpleasant conversation or the confrontational conversation that made you feel flustered, right? There could also be another trigger. I wasn't really necessarily an addict per se in an escapism way. I used my compulsive behaviors as tools, right? To enhance my self-worth, worth, to enhance my value, to have things happen to me that validated a story about me that I liked, right? So a massive trigger for me was anytime that I felt behind, anytime that I felt like other people were moving faster than I was, right? That I'm off track, I'm moving too slow, right? So that triggered, oh no, I'm behind, I'm not going to be impressive, I'm not going to be the best one in the room, there's other people who are moving faster than me, so I'm going to look average, right? And so that would trigger me to, oh, I need to have somebody tell me how awesome I am. I need to have somebody validate me, somebody tell me how attractive I am. I need that validation or attention from people because right now I'm starting to question my worth and question my value because, I'm having a bad day at work or a bad week at work, whatever. But that's the stuff that you're checking in, right? Like I said, by the time you've got triggered by whatever it is and your brain's now wanting to seek out some sort of acting out behavior, I'm not going to say it's too late, but it's almost too late. By the time it's surfing for the activity, it really doesn't want to stop. It really doesn't want to. And every person listening to this, you guys probably know what I'm talking about. There is a threshold at which you cross where your brain is like, I want to act out and I don't want to do anything that would result in me not acting out. It's why guys don't call their peer support network because they know that if I call their support network, I'm not going to be able to act out. And so they're like, I'm just not going to call so I can act out, right? Which is the exact behavior we're trying to avoid. And I think the way that you avoid that is you get in the habit of policing your process addiction, not the sexual aspects of it. So how's this look like logistically? Well, again, if you have a really good peer support group, the guys in your support tribe should be very, very familiar with your process addiction and where it came from and why you use it. And so because they're very familiar with your unique process addiction, you can now communicate with them, hey guys, this happened. And because these guys have been learning about your process addiction the whole time, when you tell them the situation, they're all going to be in there giving you tips, advice on what to do. They're going to be checking in on you, right? So, if they haven't heard from you, they might be texting you and say, hey, how are things? What's going on? Right? Because again, they're very familiar with how activating and triggering that could be for you, right? And here's the cool thing is one of two things is going to happen. When you disclose that you're feeling behind, you're feeling unsuccessful, you're feeling unaccomplished, and that's a trigger for you to go seek attention and validation. When you say that out loud to the group, you just reporting it in is going to take 75% of the life out of it, right? So if you would have normally act out, you just sharing that with your tribe, your recovery tribe, it's going to already make it that much less likely it's going to happen. The second we speak things out loud and the secrecy is kind of gone and the awareness is there, you've done a good majority. Now, there's still a potential, right? Let's call it 25% of the potential that you could still do it. And again, so that's when the other guys coming in and pouring into you, loving on you, giving you tips, giving you advice, that continued dialogue takes that remaining 25%, just sucks it down to zero. And again, it's all about catching it earlier and earlier and earlier. And that's, when I look at the guys in my recovery groups who are really in really advanced recovery, I mean, we're talking real self-mastery. I mean, these guys are, really rooted in their moral compass, right? They're men of integrity at this point. That's what they're doing. They're catching, hey, what makes me less me? And I'm going to report that to the group. Because again, I think by the time, when we're really looking at the sexual behaviors, it's almost too late and we're kind of missing the opportunity, right? That's sobriety. But we're missing the recovery aspect. And for those guys who are married and you're trying to rebuild trust, this is how trust is built, right? Trust isn't built by saying, oh, I was about to act out and then I didn't. Or I got close to acting out and I didn't. That doesn't build trust. If anything, that freaks her out, right? Where she's going to start to feel trust and safety is when you're policing these behaviors really, really, really early on. Right? Because again, we all know that if you're catching it in the beginning, you're a really long way from actually doing something stupid, right? And that's how, to me, what really brings safety and trust back into the relationship is it's like they see you really trying to be a better man early on in the process to the point where it's like, man, he's really far away from acting out, right? And he has this peer support group that's further helping him make that less and less and less likely. So in conclusion, a really good recovery plan, especially when it comes to you policing your sobriety and your recovery, that's what it looks like, right? It's having a tribe of people and a support network around you who know what leads you to act out. And then you're literally, as early in the process, policing the things well before they get down into dangerous territory.